So my freestyle mastery journal came out of a few things. The first was just straight obsession with being a better freestyler, but more recently it was when Black Thought did the 10-minute performance on Funk Flex, and lots of people called me that day or the next day's day that followed, and just people from all walks of life, people who knew me as a scholar, people who knew me as an artist and knew about my obsession, people who knew about my research around rap and cognition were like, hey, was this an off the dome freestyle? And the general consensus seemed to be that it was impossible for this to have been off the dome. And my thinking was that if anybody could do it, then I would think Black Thought could, because he is a technician. But not only that, I had seen him and Mad Skills. I seen some footage of them on a tour bus doing this crazy practice where they were like, you got to quote a famous song and then finish with an improvised line or whatever. And so I just thought, given the level of attention that they give to the craft, that this was completely possible. But even, he in an interview a couple of days later was like, nah, I'm pretty good off the dome, but, I'm not a god. And, my thinking about it was like, then still like, well, if it was possible, then how, right? And I wanted to know, like, well, like, being a learning scientist and being somebody who's been emceeing for a while, like, could I combine both of those to get to this intricate, complex level of freestyle fluency? I won't forget the day that it happened, because I was hanging out with some of the homies, and I mean, these people who I that like just newly met, so like not all of them were freestylers, and I was telling them that, like, doing a flawless freestyle for 10 minutes is not impossible, right? And then so one of my dudes turned on a beat, and it was the same Mobb Deep beat, and I went for 8 minutes before the phone ran out or whatever, and it wasn't flawless. But again, my question still became like, well, how could I get to that 10 minutes and still be able to spit this very complex, transcendent level of improvised freestyle? And it's more than a notion, because, somebody like Black Thought, like, I doubt that I could even write at Black Thought's level. However, you have conversations with people all the time where you pierce reality, and you get to these deeper levels of understanding just through the exchange. And so theoretically, a performance that involves language, you should still be able to have some of these same sort of breakthroughs. And I've had transcendent spaces, and I've seen transcendent freestylers, where you have these moments where it's just like, I don't know, man, the heavens open, and it is a full stream of thought. So for me, this became like a challenge to self. But another thing was, when I was doing my experiments with these expert freestyle rappers, people would tell me about some dude who was really dope off the dome. And, they refer me to the person. I go talk to the person. And more than once, people were saying, like, yeah, I used to be really good at this, but since the battle format changed, I don't really do it anymore. And so that kind of, again, like, from a cognitive standpoint, I'm thinking like, oh, like, it's cool when the culture goes to a different place. Like, the new battle format is dope. You get some really awesome stuff. But, my question was like, when we were in this visceral space and the culture demanded this, dynamic, in the moment thinking, what's going on there, and maybe did we possibly lose something by that shift? What we do know from like the study of fluent bilinguals, or the study of expert musicians, is that cognitive flexibility from that fluency, from navigating multiple rule-based communication systems, has, effects on the mind and how flexible the brain is, and even, into how you age, getting Alzheimer's a few years later and stuff like that. So, with my work, that's one of the things that I question. But from the standpoint of freestyle and the culture, was like, I think people shy away from the difficulty of spitting freestyles off the dome, and a lot of people do think that it's impossible to reach this complex level. But there are dudes out there who are transcendent. One of my favorite is Juice, man, and I saw him on Be Real, and he was talking about how he don't know when it happened, but he reached a new level. He was always dope, but he was, on this level where he's weaving these complex stories, and there was no beginning, no end, and there was no mistakes, and like there was no, didn't even seem like a moment where he was pausing to think. And so my question was like, is, I'm all right, but can I use what we know about learning to try to reach that type of level of expertise? One of my goals is to be also transparent about this process. And, that also includes being vulnerable. A lot of times you don't get that, where everybody wants to kind of, have this flawless presentation or whatever. In my case, I'm leaving in the mistakes, talking about them, thinking about them, working through them. Because for me, this is not, just limited to freestyle, and you're not going to get just freestyles if you're one of the people who are following this. This is very much about living a good life. I think there's a science to living a good life, and I think, that might sound crazy and unconnected, but like, I think part of that science is being able to pursue a passion or mastery of something within that. And in that process, you end up mastering yourself. You end up having to take different aspects of your reality, even if there's obstacles to you achieving this expertise. You end up sort of having to do this alchemy that turns all of these other aspects of your life into affordances that serve that mastery, serve that expertise development. And so, I'm going to be transparent about that process. From time to time, I'm just going to talk about learning. Yeah, I'm obsessed with freestyle, but for the people who are taking this journey with me, maybe you're passionate about something else and, wondering how do we use this huge body of knowledge that we have from human endeavor, from science, and apply it to actually our own personal development, our own self-mastery, our own pursuit of our passions, and ultimately our own fulfillment.